Welcome back. Our next guest went viral when she wrote an op-ed about her experiences with racism at university at Western in London, Ontario. Now she's published a memoir that dives deeper into what it was like to be a biracial student at a predominantly white university. Please welcome Eternity Martis. She's the author of They Said This Would Be Fun, Race, Campus Life, and Growing Up. So good to see you, Eternity. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So, right off the bat in your introduction, and I want to read this to get it right, you say, nothing in this book is sugar coated for you. It's raw, it's glaring, it's imperfect, as is real life. Why was it important for you to be so uncompromising in your writing?
Well, when I think of the way that we talk about young people, especially in university, it's always as if they're having the time of their lives, they're having fun, nothing actually is harmful or hurtful to them. And I really wanted to dispel that myth because for people who look like me or anyone who's not straight and a white male, that fun university experience doesn't really exist for a lot of not when this generation, my generation, we are facing cyber stalking, we are facing carding. Young women are the most at risk of intimate partner violence in the country. We are dealing with mental health issues. We're still getting degrees, even though we have a shaky economy. And so I really wanted to draw attention to the fact that, we can no longer say, well, you're young. What do you know about pain? What do you know about suffering? When in fact, so many of us have these massive burdens on our hands at the same time that we're trying to figure out our own identity.
Wow. Well, you discussed this in the book that you identify as biracial. You were primarily raised by your mother and her parents, who are of Pakistani descent. However, there was little to no talk about race, particularly when it came to the paternal side of your family and your Black heritage as well. So, fast forwarding the fact that there were little to no discussions about this, now you find yourself in university. What impact did that lack of conversation about race have on you in university?
Well, I think that for most multi families, race is not really something you discuss. And in my family, I grew up with all brown people, and they saw me that way, but I don't pass as a brown woman. I never have. And the second I stepped outside of my door and that comfort of home, I was a Black woman. And that's how and that's how I survived. And my family, in a way, kind of saw it as a betrayal my Pakistani side to identify with this Black side. But since I've graduated from Western and moved back to Toronto for my master's, it's changed so much. I think now that they're around me and they see what I experience, they've become my biggest allies. And they always have been. I've never had to, they never put gender roles on me. I could do whatever I wanted. They never wanted me to go into a particular career. And so this was kind of just the last piece of the puzzle of us breaking down that barrier of communication and them getting to know me better.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of communication, there was another sort of wall that you hit when in the book you start to delve into the intersection of abuse and race, and you discuss at length the traumatic experience you had in your relationship with a high school boyfriend named Joshua. And there were a lot of red flags, a lot of problem areas, and yet it seems that there was a lot of dismissal on the part of people around you that there was anything truly wrong here. You write perhaps because of his race. How did all of that influence how people viewed your relationship with him?
Well, at the time that this happened, I was fairly young. I was about 18 or 19. And there's a stereotype that's quite pervasive about Asian men being effeminate and passive and submissive. And at the same time, there's a stereotype that Black women cannot be abused and we are the aggressors. I was supposed to be the aggressor, not him. And so when all of this was happening and there wasn't really anyone around to share these red flags with, they were things I knew myself, I would kind of tell friends and they'd be like, but girl, like you're a Black woman. Like, like an Asian can't do that to you. And for a long time, I dismissed those red flags because I was like, well, my friends say I'm a Black woman, I'm unbreakable. If I just, talk more, if I'm louder, if I'm more aggressive, this will stop. And of course it didn't because that's not how abuse works.
Trinity, you attended Western University from 2010 to 2014, and in the first chapter, you talk about an incident. It was at Halloween. You were in a bar, and three people dressed as cotton pickers in blackface approached you. Tell us what you felt right at that moment.
I had no idea what I was seeing. And what I did feel was terror, and I did feel threatened, but I didn't know why I felt threatened. And blackface is something that you think you see in, you see in movies right now, or you see it in history books that you read on your own. I never expected to see it in 2011 facing me. And I don't know how I necessarily feel, but I know that I was targeted by those people. And it just kind of symbolizes just how normalized blackface party and wearing blackface actually is.
You observed a really strange phenomenon on campus. You longed to find other Black students at Western University, Eternity, but when you did, they would actually avoid making eye contact with you. What was going on there when other Black students didn't want to look at other Black students?
Yeah, I was really shocked. I'm from Toronto, so when you're in Toronto, you walk by another Black person, you kind of nod or smile. And so I thought I would do the same thing. And I saw this girl at a bridge at the end of my first month at Western, and I know she saw me, but then when we walked by each other, she looked down, and it confused me for a while. And then by third or fourth year, I actually started doing the same thing, because what I really quickly realized was that you're so hyper visible and hyper invisible at the same time. And it's just, you don't want to be around else. You're just trying to survive the environment. And later on, towards the end of my career, my academic career at Western, I would hang out with my girlfriends in the student center, and we would laugh, and I would turn around and nearly everyone was staring at us in like fear and loathing. And I think there's such a concern that Black joy sparks Black fear. So to be even recognized by another person, you're putting more eyes on you.
I think a lot of people pride themselves on the fact that post-secondary institutions are supposed to be places where you can explore thinking and free thought and free speech. And yet there have been so many controversies in the news and beyond of that space also allowing other voices such as alt-right ideas to come through, or white supremacist groups or speakers to come in. What is your view on those voices being allowed at a university environment?
I think it's university is a space where opposing views should be allowed, and I don't see any issue with that. I think the issue is right now, what happens when that speech may not be against the law, it may not be hate speech, but it is derogatory, offensive, incites violence or discrimination against another person. And our laws don't protect that. They don't protect it in the same way that we're seeing it so often right now. And I think that's where these alt-right ideologies kind of come through and use freedom of expression as a cushion. And so I don't know if we're ever going to get to a place where we can stop this kind of hate speech of kinds that doesn't go against the law. But we can certainly talk about it.
Well, it's definitely a heavy subject matter, obviously discussions that have to be had, experiences that must be shared, but you do have some really funny, hilarious moments in there. You have the necessary survival guide for token students, and that happens in between each chapter. Why did you decide to write those moments of levity in that way between the chapters?
Yeah, when we have stories commissioned by people of color, it's always about pain and trauma and suffering. And the book is so heavy, but we always forget about Black joy and what that means. So it was supposed to replicate that and provide some comfort for any readers who were kind of going through it, to have that friend be like, oh my gosh, and bring that cheeky, bold, tongue-in-cheek humor that we love to use in situations like this, because sometimes you just have to laugh.
Ain't that the truth? What a fascinating book. Thank you so much for your honesty and revealing so much of your experience to us and writing about it. Thanks so much for joining us, Eternity.
Thank you so much.
Okay, let's tell all the viewers the book. It is called They Said It Would Be Fun. It is available now. Go out and get it. We'll be right back.